Hi everybody, it's Nick Clifford here from Allo Education. In this 15-minute YouTube video learning, we're going to look at change management, and we're going to look in particular at some change management models that you could potentially use when you are going through change, either yourself or whether you are part of a team or whether you're leading change. So first of all, what is change management? So I've just brought in a very brief description of what change management is here. It's a good start point, I think, to this particular video. It's the management of change and development within a business or a similar sized organization. Also, it could be it says here, controlled identification and implementation of required changes. The example here is within a computer system, but basically change can be any size. It can be a system, it can be a process, it can be a change within a structure of an organization, it can be a change within a team, it can be a change from an individual perspective, and it's the management of change and development within that particular business or organization that we're going to focus on today. Let's not forget that change impacts everybody, whether we like it or not. In particular, over the last 12 months, we've all been impacted by change in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it be working remotely from home and getting used to working in that particular way, or working with different systems, or working with different people and different requirements along the way. So from a change management perspective, it impacts everybody. It's not just a change management around systems or processes. It affects people throughout all of that. So some of the key principles of change management I've listed here. So from a change perspective, if you're looking to be involved in change and you're looking to head change, or you're part of a change team, or you're working on a project, first thing to think about is you need to identify what is the actual need for change, and you need to provide some sort of form of justification. If you're asked, you may be incurring some cost in the need for change, so you need to prepare and get as much justification as you can if challenged from above. You need to make sure that you've got effective leadership supporting that particular change. You may be leading the change yourself. If not, you need to make sure that you've got strong people around you that will drive the change through and support you. You're going to come up against risk. There's going to be risks at every stage of your change management approach or plan, but you need to assess those risks up front. What are the things that will stop you actually completing what you want to and the change that you want to affect? With that in mind, you need to have backup plans or contingency plans. It's really important. You don't want to get half a way through your change project or your change approach and a risk suddenly drops itself into the plan and you've got nothing really to back it up. So contingency planning is really important at an early stage. Working with people all the way through a change project or a change approach is important. You need to make sure you've got the right stakeholders. You identify the right people with the right skills and abilities to support that particular change. You need to make sure that your stakeholder engagement is also completed at an early stage, and I'll be doing another 15-minute video around stakeholder engagement and working with stakeholders, and you can look at that in our YouTube channel also. Implementing change is a massive part of the change management process. You've identified the need, justified the need for change, got the right people involved, assessed your risks, you've got a backup plan or a contingency plan to support if things go wrong, but implementing that particular change is massive, and that's a huge part of it. You've got to get that right. The planning side of things will take care of itself, but when you decide to go live with a change, whether it's a change to a process, a system, or anything to do with your team potentially, you need to make sure that the implementing change process goes as smoothly as possible. So you could potentially do a trial run before you go live with that particular change. That's something that I've seen and worked with in the past, but you need to make sure that if there's potential training requirements for staff and for people before the change goes live, you can't just drop it on people and go, right, we're now doing this. So you need to cover all bases there. Throughout the whole of this process, you need to make sure that you're evaluating at every stage. More so, once you've implemented the change, you've identified some key measures and objectives, early doors, you need to make sure you continue to evaluate. And has this change met your outcomes? Has it met the objectives? How will you continue to measure the effectiveness of that particular change? So that's the principles of change management. We're now going to look at some change management models. And the first of these is a very simple model, and it's called the Lewin's three-stage model. Developed by Kurt Lewin, and it's a three-phase model that breaks down larger changes into more manageable chunks. So change management models are concepts, they're theories, and they're sort of methodologies really, but they do provide an in-depth support and approach to change within an organisation. They aim to provide a guide to making changes, helping the project team or the leaders navigate the actual transformation process and ensure that the changes are accepted. And that's the key word here, the changes are accepted. So from a Lewin's perspective, he went with a very, very simple unfreeze, change, refreeze approach. You've identified your change. Employees are working in a certain way. You make that change and people are going to get understandably nervous. So you need to go through a phase of unfreezing the current process, analysing how it can be improved so that everybody affected can understand that particular need for change. You then make your changes and guide your employees through the transition. And that's the change, that's the second part of this three-stage model. The refreeze is very simple. You've gone through the process and now you need to make sure that the change becomes permanent. So you could also say this is the evaluation stage as well of the Lewin's model, where you've gone through the process, worked with people to get them ready for the change, put the change in place. You refreeze the process now and you fix it. It becomes permanent. Keep evaluating all the way through. It's really important to do that. The next model we're going to look at is called the McKinsey 7S model. This is more of a complex model, but it can be used when implementing complicated organisational-wide changes. There's 7 elements to this. They're not really meant to be looked at in any specific order, but we can talk through this. So if you look at the first 3, and this is the strategy, structure, and the systems, and these are the sort of pinky coloured boxes at the top of the model. These are considered the hard elements. They're simpler to identify and easily influenced by management. Okay. The hard elements are things like company plans, so linking to strategy, organisational charts, which is linking to structure, and the routine processes for how the work is done, and that links into the systems. The remaining 4 soft elements are more difficult to describe, but they are influenced by the company culture itself. The staff skill sets, the overall leadership style, as well as the values or the culture of the company, and these things are more subject to change. The key is to keep all 7 of these elements in harmony, analysing how they interact with each other. But the key thing to this is the shared values. The shared values sit across all 7 of the hard S and the soft S elements of the model. They're the core values of the organisation, shown in its corporate culture and its general work ethic. They're called the goals within where the model was first developed, and it interlinks strategy, structure, systems, skills, style, and staff, the hard and the soft S's. So how could this model support improved performance or continued alignment to goals and objectives? The outputs could include new processes, a restructuring of teams, new systems, change of leadership, or a merger. That's the McKinsey 7S model. Now you're going to look at the Bridges transitional model. And this more so focuses on people, and it's on the emotional reactions throughout a change transition. A lot of models focus on the change itself, but the bridge model narrows on the actual transition process. We're breaking it into 3 stages, and this is linked to people. So it's the ending, the transition, and the new beginnings. A little bit similar to the Lewin's model that we talked about earlier, but the concept behind this is that change is a thing that happens to people. It's a journey that people embark on. Some embrace it, some don't. There could be denial, anger, a bit of frustration that comes with change. But you can guide people towards this neutral midpoint zone, which is the bridge between the old and the new. So again, it's very similar to the Lewin's 3-stage model as we described. So you've got the ending, which you've got a change, uncertainty. Some people may be happy with that, anticipating a change, a little bit of denial, frustration. You move them through the model into the transition phase, where you start to engage and work with them. A little bit of creativity, innovation. The anxiety starts to dip slightly, but then they come through into the new beginnings, where there's an element of commitment, high energy, accomplishment, because people have been involved in the new structure or the new piece of work or system or process, and they come out the other side of it. That's the bridge transitional model. Finally, we're going to look at the Kotter 8 Steps to Success change model, developed by Harvard Business School professor John P. Kotter and divided into 8 stages. Does a really good job of building enthusiasm and understanding for change as it works up the steps, as we can see. It's a bit of a top-down model. It neglects to include a stage that calls for employee feedback, which is really important. So there's a risk here that employee resistance may stall the process, but on the whole, it does work very well. Very simply, you walk up the steps, you establish a sense of urgency on that particular change. As a leader, you will guide and support your people through it, developing a shared, clear vision. Communicating the vision, you may talk upwards as well as downwards to your team, but you're empowering people to act and walk through this particular journey with you. You create short-term wins, so you set your SMART objectives, consolidate and build on those small gains. Then you institutionalize the change. You make that change happen. Again, a very, very simple 8 steps to successful change. Lots of smaller targets and initiatives that sit underneath 8 of these key steps. And you can find more about the Kotter theory on the internet. Finally, just a bit of a summary. Change is rarely welcome, but with proper management and support, you can minimize negative reactions from people. Choose a change management model that functions as a compass to support you, pointing you and your team towards the desired outcome. If you do this, and you're very open and transparent about it, the path to successful change will be much easier to navigate. Continued support through a change is essential, especially with larger changes, such as adopting new software or processes. Using the change management tool that works for you can help attain the support you need for the change, either big or small. You can't do it on your own. Okay, that's the end of this very, very short 15-minute video. I hope you found it useful when considering change within your organisation. If you've got any questions about anything we talked about today, please come back to me. Thanks for watching.